The innocent victims of crime have frequently been overlooked by our criminal justice system, and their pleas for justice have gone unheeded, and their wounds, personal, emotional, and financial, have gone unattended. So I am signing today an executive order establishing the President's Task Force on Victims of Crime.
Victims or survivors of crime as a group are poorly understood by the public and many officials, even though they hold important keys to improving safety and justice in society. Victims know a lot about crime, as the majority of victims have been crime victims before and/or have witnessed other crimes. They know the current system often does not give them meaningful recourse, so fewer than half of violent crimes and only 2/5 of many property crimes are actually reported to authorities.
The Department of Corrections in the 1990s decided to create a victim services unit in order to address all of the needs for crime victims in Virginia in the post-sentencing phase. Virginia also adopted the Virginia Bill of Rights in the 1990s, which is 19.2-11.01, which has specific obligations for the Department of Corrections to provide services to crime victims. Throughout the years, we have continued to expand to include new programs, and we have also had the ability to expand our staff from 3 full-time to an additional 6 positions last year with Federal Victim of Crime Act funding, which allowed us to really expand our services throughout the state and provide regional services to work in collaboration with our local partners and Commonwealth's attorneys and law enforcement and nonprofit organizations to ensure a better transition for victims into the criminal justice system and also back into the community during reentry. Our 3 main programs in the Victim Services Unit are the Notification Program, the Victim Impact Curriculum, and the Victim Offender Dialogue Program. In Virginia, crime victims are required to register with the Virginia Department of Corrections in order to continue to receive notification about the status of the offender in their case. The Victim Services Unit provides notification to crime victims in the event of an offender's transfer, work release, name change, death, escape and recapture, parole events, advanced release, and release notifications. We use an automated notification system to provide information to victims of crime. That system is called VINE, Victim Information Notification Every Day. We also supplement that system with our own notifications through the Victim Services Unit.
I thought it was very essential for the Department of Corrections Victim Services Unit and the Attorney General's Victim Notification Program to work together to address a gap that existed in the process. We collaborated to create a uniform victim notification request form, and that was a benefit for both of our agencies. In working with the Victim Services Unit, it has been really helpful for us to be able to have someone that we can transition our victims to when they have questions about the Department of Corrections, the housing process, what's happening with the offenders, because we can't provide that. So when the advocates are there and they help us understand it, and we know that the victims are also taken care of, that eases our role.
One of the essential functions of the Victim Services Unit is to handle unwanted contact. When we receive notification from a victim that the offender in their case has reached out or attempted to reach out to them and caused any level of fear or a feeling of intimidation, then as our mission as a department for public safety, we have to take that very seriously. Receiving contact from offenders can cause extreme trauma or re-victimization. It can have everlasting physical, emotional, or psychological and financial effects on victims who are really trying to cope with and find a new norm after being harmed. Many are forced to seek medical assistance or psychological assistance after a reach out like this, and that all comes at a cost to them, and they have to pay for it out of pocket. So, many victims deal with daily triggers. So something as seemingly small as receiving an envelope in the mail, if that envelope has the offender's name on it in their mailbox, or if the family member of an offender reaches out to them via social media, that can be devastating for that victim and their family. And so to counteract this, in May of 2017, we were able to collaborate with the Offender Discipline Unit and put a new charge into policy, a 100 series charge into the policy to hold offenders accountable for these attempts to reach out or reach outs, whether that's a direct contact or an indirect contact. And we've been successful in gaining convictions since May, and some of those egregious cases have actually ended up back in court, and there has been a revocation of suspended time for some offenders. But we're hoping in the future that there's going to be less disciplinary action taken because awareness will spread and the offenders will hopefully recognize the potential harm that this could cause to the community. And I have spoken with many of the offender populations about this, and some of them do struggle with the idea. I understand that. They are in a really good place. They feel remorse. They feel empathy. They want the opportunity to say that they're sorry for the harm that they've caused the community. But unfortunately, they gave up that right to say they're sorry when they committed that crime. And some of them struggle with hearing that. But what I try to get them to understand is that we don't reach out to victims unless they have asked us to. It can be devastating to receive a random letter in the mail, a phone call, having someone else come to them on behalf of the offender. And while the offender may be in a really good place and have the best of intentions, we just don't know where that victim is emotionally in their process for moving forward after being harmed. And so we can't cause any more victimization to the community. So we have to take that kind of thing very seriously. And I tell them, you've essentially given up the right to say you're sorry. So let's sit down and discuss as a group, what are some other ways that you can make amends for the harm that you've caused to the community? What are some smaller day-to-day things that you can do while incarcerated to make amends? A lot of people talk the talk, but are you actually walking the walk? Are you helping your peer? Are you tutoring? Are you, donating to a nonprofit? Are you supporting a boys and girls club in the community? Different things like that. And it's been a really good discussion statewide. And a lot of the offenders do understand because a lot of time may have passed between the time of their offense and where they are now. And they may have not thought about that victim as much. However, victims are thinking about this crime regularly, if not every single day. It has changed how they operate in their day-to-day duties. And a lot of offenders struggle with understanding that.
The Victim Impact Program was created in 2006 by the Office for Victims of Crime, and Virginia was one of 4 pilot states for the program and has been running it continuously since then. It had dwindled down to only being in a couple of facilities, so in 2016 we started working to revitalize and grow the program across the state. In the 2 years since then, we've trained nearly 100 facilitators, including treatment staff, probation staff, even administrative staff, mental health staff. As of spring 2018, we have 14 sites that are actively running the program and some additional sites that are planning to launch in 2018, as well as some probation districts in the community. We're in security levels 1 through 4, and we are launching in a 5 in spring 2018. The Victim Impact Program is designed to help offenders get a better understanding of the impact of their crime on victims, families, and the community, and to help them understand the harm that they've caused and the ripple effect that has. It's designed to help hold them accountable for the harm that they've caused and to show them the impact in 4 main areas: physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual. The program includes a lot of different things. It teaches them new vocabulary, gives them statistics. They do a lot of activities, and one of the main parts of the program is bringing in guest speakers who can come in and give the offenders a first-hand account of how victimization has impacted their lives. The program is 13 weeks. It goes through 2 weeks of basic overview and then focuses on specific crime types for the next 10 weeks. So property crime, assault, robbery, hate and bias, gang crime, sexual assault, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, drunken impaired driving, and homicide. And then the last week is making amends, which now that they've learned all of this and gained this new perspective gives them somewhere to go with all of that. I think it's important to remember that we're housing offenders because they have caused some kind of harm, and it's important to remember what that is. And to keep that in mind in helping them to try to become better people. That's something that we can't just leave out. And also not leaving behind the people who have been impacted by their actions and making sure that they are prepared as offenders come into the system, go through the system, and then reintegrate back into the community. It's in the interest of public safety that everybody is better prepared for that, including the victims of their crimes.
First, it covers such a wide range of crimes that I never thought about before. I had no idea of the statistics, the impacts on victims, society in general, and covering each particular crime, it allowed me to become more aware, more conscious how these crimes affect people. And also, it caused me to journey within myself and to reflect on how the crimes I've committed, how I believe it impact people as well.
Well, for myself, I came in with the attitude that, this is going to be another program, something else to learn, to add to my repertoire, to make me well-rounded. And what I wasn't prepared for was the emotional roller coaster that ensued. I had compartmentalized my actions and the effect of my actions. And going through the process, it stripped that blanket away and made me feel the rawness, or at least imagine the rawness that my actions may have caused on others that I harmed. And that was difficult and an awakening process.
It helped me a lot, helped me more express my feelings, and it helped me be more remorseful, and helped me be more understanding, getting me to see and understand the gravity and harm that I've caused, on the crimes that I committed, and the awareness of how many people was affected by my actions, and I never really thought about the victim and the co-victim and the amount of devastation it caused on that person's life.
I believe this is a tangible evidence of prison reform programs that help men to ponder and step outside of themselves and really see the impact that they've caused to another individual. It makes you think objectively of what you've done to someone else.
I'm more considerate towards others. I'm more thoughtful. I look at people, I look at you. They'll see employees in a completely different manner, because for a very long time I considered myself to be a victim. And my mindset was of such that I had a parochial vision. I couldn't see beyond that. So the program, it opened me up to life in general from different perspective other than my own. And by doing so, it allowed me to entertain thoughts and sensations within myself that I believe caused me to become reconnected with a a part of my humanity that I never thought or didn't think was even still alive.
I wouldn't want to be released without experiencing this class, because it made me realize something that I never thought of before, and that's the victims. You know, when I did think about the victim, I thought about it in a selfish way. What I wanted to do to make myself feel better or make the victim feel like I've changed. But I never looked at it from this point of view.
It allows you to see both sides of the coin, not just the crime that you committed and what your family members going through and what your friends going through while you're incarcerated, but it allows you to look more at the victims that was victimized because of the crimes that you committed and what they go through on a daily basis, because you can do your time and pay your debt to society and go back out there in society and still live your life, like nothing really happened. But the victims that was actually victimized from the crimes that you committed has to live each and every day through the experience of being victimized,
One of the greatest things about this class that I found out, after getting in it and everything, was most of the classes that we take and everything deal with you as an individual, deal with you as the offender, and, as perpetrator or whatever, label it would be. But at the same time, this class right here, it's beyond that. It's the only thing that deals with you is what you did to harm others, to cause them to be victims. It brings your focus more on the people that is affected, harmed, hurt, and, just that's never seen behind the scenes a lot of times. We always looked at as he did this, he did that, but they don't look at who all was involved behind the scenes, behind the curtains, who really, really matters too.
It opens our eyes as inmates to the things that we've done to people in our past. A lot more times than not, when we're in here, only thing we think about is ourselves. We think about ourselves and our families and how this has affected us and them. We don't think about the victims of the crimes that we commit. You don't think, in the aspect, you don't think about what trouble we caused them. We don't think about the pain and the hurt that we have caused these people. All we think about is, well, I got this amount of time, I've done this, I did this, and I did, But this program, from the very beginning, it was eye-opening. The information that was given out there, the way we saw the victims on the videos, even hearing the speakers come, you see it from a different angle, you see it from a different aspect. You take it from being about yourself and you put yourself in the shoes of the victim. It caused me to not be so conceited, so self-centered, and to understand that it's not about me. This experience has been remarkable. I can't even quantify into words how it has changed my life and the trajectory that I believe I'm on right now. So I'm very grateful.
Most of the offenders, they don't realize the impact that they have. They really think it's isolated, like one incident, one victim on that one day. And from the response I get from the guys, they realize now that the actions that they cause impact more than just the individual that they harmed. And the speakers that come in, it makes it more meaningful and more powerful to them, and they realize that the ripple effect it causes in their neighborhoods and their communities, and even to the people that are not even in their communities. Every time you watch the news, they're like, wow, what I did really affected more people than I could ever imagine. And once that light bulb goes off, then they're like, I gotta do better.
I've seen them recognize victimizing behavior. Even in other situations while, incarcerated, I think a certain level of awareness was risen because of their enrollment in Victim Impact. And I've watched them catch themselves and responsibly recognize that what I'm doing is not acceptable and that it may be victimizing behavior just because they remember what they learned in Victim Impact. I've watched offenders' voice or heard them voice that they are more grateful for the opportunity to participate in other programs, understanding that victims don't always get those type of services and that type of help.
The Virginia Department of Corrections has offered victim-offender dialogue since 2012. VOD offers the opportunity for a victim to give full voice to the pain and trauma they've suffered as a result of a violent crime. Interacting directly with the offender in a controlled, safe environment provides a chance for victims to feel heard. This is a chance that they may not have previously been given by the courts or the criminal justice system. It's a one-time meeting between a victim and an offender that helps the victims get some information and answers. VOD gives the victim a way to verbally express their anger and grief directly to the person responsible for their pain. Each VOD is facilitated by trained DOC staff. Facilitators serve as a guide to help victims identify their needs and to help offenders prepare to hear what the victim has to say. The facilitator's fundamental role during this process is to help build a foundation of trust and authentic interaction between the victim and the offender.
Our facilitator was wonderful, and the process was longer than I thought it was going to be, but because my facilitator is educated in this field and she understands what all's going into it for our mental health, our mental well-being, it was key that it take as long as it did. It took almost a year for us before we actually sat down with our offender, but by the time we sat down, we were ready.
I had it laid out how I wanted the meeting to go. When I got to a certain point, I think that my emotions had been built up for so long that I just burst into tears, and I think I cried more than I've ever cried before. I wanted him to understand how his actions affected me. I wanted him to understand that my loved one was someone that I really do love and miss, and that my loved one was a very good person, and I just wanted him to know what he had taken away from me.
My husband and I thought it was absolutely positively the best thing for her, because she's been sitting in our house thinking for 3 years or however many years that he was mad at her, that he blamed her.
Since that pretty much gave me a lot of healing, that I needed to know that he wasn't there to hurt me, and I felt the forgiveness in my heart, which I really did not think I was going to have. I told myself and everybody that I was not going into that doing that, because that was not something I would do, and I did not feel that for the 3 years that I would ever do that, but I did, and I felt like that was healing for me, and I needed to go and speak to others and teach others that this isn't okay, and just go and speak, because I want to bring awareness to it.
I was so happy to offer him forgiveness, to let him see that that there's more out there, that he has a purpose, that yes, he committed this crime, that he is remorseful for, but we can all move on from it. And I wanted him to know that we weren't angry anymore.
The VOD process is a safe environment, a safe way for that individual to get the answers they need to questions and to arrive at some sort of closure.
My brother and I are both so happy that we got to participate in it, and we don't regret it at all.
VOD is victim-initiated, victim-centered, and totally voluntary for both the victim and the offender. Offenders don't receive any tangible benefits or special privileges from participation, but it is our hope that they take from this experience a chance to demonstrate accountability for their actions and to make amends and to express remorse to their victim.
We're in the business of helping people, and it seems like a lot of emphasis is placed on let's just help the offender. But what I know is that the victims are a great part of helping the whole justice system to heal. And that's what we are in the business of doing. And I'll never forget this, is that we were set everything up. We went through the whole process, and I'm making rounds in the building about a week after the event. And the offender stops me and he thanks me for allowing that prize. And I did nothing other than let people in the door. And I asked him, because it's a confidential process, but I asked him, well, how did it work for you? And he said he found out that it wasn't about him. It was about the victim, and that he had cried and he had gotten a lot more remorseful about what he had done because he saw the impact that he had on another person. And I think in life, when we realize that it's not about us, it's about other people, and other people first, that's a life-changing event, not just for that moment in time, but for the entirety of it. Anytime you can have empathy and teach empathy, share empathy, it takes us beyond about crime and justice.
Because victimization involves psychological and physical trauma, when we're in a position to protect victims' interests and allow them to participate in this post-conviction process, I think that we're doing a benefit not only for the crime victims themselves, but for society as a whole.
The Virginia Department of Corrections is responsible for the care and custody of the returning citizens, and I believe that victim services is just an intricate part of that. I believe that our collaboration throughout Department of Corrections is essential for not only preparing that returning citizen to leave more empathetic and accountable, but also to tell the victims of crimes that we have addressed the issues and that we have done everything we can as an agency to make the public safer.